Today, we're going to be speaking with our new kids on the block. We love to introduce our newest members and get them to tell us a little bit more about themselves. We typically hear about them every meeting, what they do for a living. Well, that's great for us on a weekly basis, but we would like to get to know, because we are a relationship club, we'd like to get to know our members a little bit more personally. So today, they get to tell us a little bit more about themselves, not necessarily their business. So today we have two great speakers with us today that are going to share a little bit more about themselves as the members of the New Kids on the Block. Our first is Susan RoAne. Now, most of you know a few things about Susan RoAne, AKA the Mingling Maven. One is she and Patricia Fripp are dearest friends. Two, that she is a mega best-selling author of How to Work a Room and 7 other books. And number 3, Susan is one of our past GGBC speakers and now a member, but her framed certificate for speaking hangs in her office. She's Chicago born and bred, growing up in the era of Mayor Richard Daley the first, with a slot machine in her home, and no one knows how it got there. And I'm not going to go into any more because I'm going to let Susan tell us more.
Your updates 10:31.
And unmute yourself and let us know about you.
Well, if you grew up in Chicago when I did, it was a little different. When I was about 7, we moved to a new neighborhood, and my mother told me not to ask the girl, we lived in an apartment building, upstairs about her father. And why? And she says, well, you don't want to talk about him. Did you know him? Oh, yeah, because my mother used to live in the building. And I said, what happened? And she said, well, one night, she used to meet this man in the hallway every night at 6:05. He'd open his paper and say, hello, Lily, how are you doing? My mother said he was a very nice man. But one night, instead of going home for dinner, because she lived with her sister, she was an immigrant from Canada, she went to see her other sister around the block. When that night when she came home, there were many police cars and fire trucks, etc. Turns out the night she didn't meet him in the lobby, he was machine gunned down by the mob. Now, I asked my mother, I didn't even know what that meant, but could you imagine being 7 or 8 and learning what getting machine gunned down by the mob was? Turns out he went into someone else's territory. So I knew that quite well. The other thing about me is that I learned to stand up and speak up for a very specific reason. My brother had what was then an epidemic. It got to epidemic proportions. He had polio. And I think a lot of you may have remembered, by looking around, may have remembered those years. And what I learned as the older sister, as he luckily survived, but he wore a brace on his leg, is that I had to be his protector. And that's what's really served me as I grew up, is speak up for people. And I have done that. But I also learned that from my parents, because they moved to this new place for the school, because it was only half a block from the house, which they thought he could walk more easily. But the school board assigned him to the Spalding School for the Handicapped. And my parents really didn't want that. So what they did is they went to the school board, and I'm going to make a little dig, when school boards were sane. And the school boards said to my parents, we will leave it up to the principal, instead of insisting that my brother go to the school for the handicapped. Well, this is in the Chicago vein, but I think every city. My parents were elated because, you see, Aunt Tilly that lived in the building, she was the president of the PTA. So of course my brother got to go to that school. The other thing that informed me is I grew up in a neighborhood in Chicago that, as some of you may remember, the day we used to go home for lunch. There were no cafeterias. You went home for lunch. So I'm used to doing that. Those grammar school days, every month, and tomorrow's one, I started a Zoom. 9 of our grammar school girls meet once a month. The ties, the community. One of the things that I learned also early on, I also was reinforced in Sunday school about standing up and speaking up. And that was, the lesson is, if you don't do that and you know better, you're as bad as the people that are doing what's bad. So I've always done that. And that started kind of my career. And I know this isn't business, but when I was a teacher, and I can't remember the name of the school on Army, it's now called the Leonard Flynn, it was LeConte School back in the day. I was a teacher there, and the principal said, Susan, we really want this program to continue. I need you to go to the school board and do a 3-minute presentation about this program. And that kicked off my professional speaking career, because I had to work on it and I had to practice it. And I gave that 3-minute speech in favor of this program at the San Francisco Unified School District School Board. By the way, at the time, the attorney was the father of Justice Breyer. So that's a connection there. And I'd had to do that a couple of times. And one day the school board secretary said to me, you know, Susan, you're very dangerous. I'm 4'11", how could I be dangerous? And she said something I've held inside my brain for a long time. She said, because when you speak, I watch the board members, they listen. And that served me. But I also learned that you're supposed to let people know how important they are to you and what they mean to you. A number of years after my career, I think it was even right when I wrote How to Work a Room, I went back to a school board event, and Leonard Flynn, that principal for whom the school is named now, was there. And I said to him, Leonard, I just need to let you know, I'm doing what I'm doing now. I have my own business. I speak all over internationally. I've been on TV, I've been in newspapers. And I said, Leonard, it's because you asked me to speak at that school board and gave me the confidence and the opportunity. 2 weeks later, his friend called to tell me Leonard had passed away. But she said, after that event, all he could talk about was that I told him what he meant to me. So here's my lesson for everyone. If anyone has helped you, anyone has guided you, let them know, because you never know. You never know. And that was actually the original title of my book, How to Create Your Own Luck, was You Never Know, because we don't know what happens. I think also what has shaped me is my grandfather was a storyteller. They used to say, forget Myron Cohn, Archie Cohn is funnier. And that really was important. And what my grandfather would do when he'd tell a story, and he didn't think his grandchildren were smart enough to catch the punchline. My grandfather would laugh at his own punchlines to signal you that this was funny. And what I've learned is that if you're telling a story and you think it's supposed to be funny, smile. But the humor ran through our family. And in growing up with a brother that wore a brace on his leg, there were a lot of horrible things that happened. But what we learned is to use that humor. There's an old saying, I'm sure most of you have heard it, humor is tragedy plus time. They've attributed it to Woody Allen. Then years ago, they attributed it to Steve Allen. But the truth is, I heard and had it confirmed from Dr. Ruth that it came from the Talmud. So how we have gotten through everything is look at things backwards, but with humor. So I think that that's impacted me. And growing up in Chicago in my community, you had to be well-read, because if someone made a statement and you didn't understand the frame of reference, that was about you and not them. So that's why I read 3 newspapers a day and watch all the shows. And there is never a pun that I haven't liked. But I'm going to close with this. Yes, I'm a best-selling author. Yes, I speak all over. Yes, I've been covered all over in newspapers. Here's what I'm really most known for among the people who know this. It's 28 years old. I have a red Miata with a black rag top, and you can see me zipping around Marin. And when people talk about shifting gears, they never have. I drive a 5-speed. I go up and down the hills in San Francisco, and my claim to fame is I drive stick shift.
Great. Thank you so much, Susan. Susan RoAne. All right, now I'd like to introduce our next new kid who's been a speaker at the Golden Gate Breakfast Club several times. So we're glad to have him now as a member of the club. So I am going to welcome our next new kid, Mr. Stephen Campbell. Stephen, make sure you unmute yourself. There you go. So
I'm unmuted. Thank you so much for having me. Well, I was raised with 6 children: Shirley, Sally, Steve, Susie, Scott, Skip. My father was an anesthesiologist, my sister was an RN, and I wanted to be a doctor. So I went to San Diego State University, majored in zoology. I didn't major in biology because I didn't want to have to draw plants. And everything was going great until I was a junior in college, when a young man on drugs ran into my VW with his Olds-88. My best friend was killed, and I was in the hospital for a year. My body was crushed, but my brain became my best friend. Before that, we hated each other. My brain didn't let me wake up for 2 weeks, and I don't remember anything. After a year in the hospital, I went back to school, finished my education, barely, and realized I would never be a physician, which was heartbreaking to me. But what I discovered was I'm a really good singer, and I'm even better at speaking. So for the next 2 years after I graduated, I became a professional speaker and singer and traveled all around America singing. It was on that tour that I met my wife. And that was 50 years ago this year. Is 1 year in the hospital worth 50 years with Mary? I'm surprised you would have to ask. We moved down to Southern California, into San Diego, and I walked down to the nearest hospital. Actually, it was a skilled nursing facility. I walked in, I said, I want to work here. And they said, well, we only pay minimum wage. And I said, I don't care. I want to work in a hospital. So I did, as an orderly. And then I became a buyer, and then a purchasing agent. And for the next 20 years, I worked in hospitals in materials management. I was the guy that bought everything. But my one passion was teaching. I love teaching. And so in 1989, I got a little job at a little college about a mile away. They advertised for an evening instructor to teach WordStar. Do you remember WordStar? That was even before WordPerfect, and computerized accounting. I was an expert at resumes and interviews. And when they said, can you do that? I lied and I said, absolutely. And they hired me. And so I would literally go to the college the night before, spend the entire night at the college, learning the stuff, and teach it the next day. But I'm a really good teacher. And within 2 years, I got an award as Best Teacher of the Year. And so for the next 25 years, I taught. And then something really interesting happened. I wanted to work at USF, University of San Francisco. In fact, I discovered that they were right in Santa Rosa. And I went in there and I said, I'd like to work for USF. And they said, you can't, you don't have a master's and you don't have a doctorate. But 10 years before, I had written my first 2 books on computer software and math. And so I brought those books to that interview. 6 months later, they called me and they said, we'd like for you to teach a class on software. And I said, I can't. I don't have a master's. I don't have a doctorate. They said, yes, Steve, but you're a published author, and we'll grandfather you in. So if you teach here at USF, we will credit you the units, and you can use those units to get your master's at USF while you're teaching here. And so for the next 10 years, I worked at USF as a professor, and it paid for my master's. It was amazing. And then in 2008, I got laid off in the Great Recession. Came home. I was 62. Mary was an elementary school principal. She had already gotten cancer once because of the pressures on her job. Back then, if you remember, the California schools were imploding, and parents were complaining about huge class sizes. So I came home, waited for Mary at the breakfast table. Mary came home, went upstairs, sat opposite me. She knew something was wrong, and she asked me what happened. And I told her. She looked at me and she said, Steve, something wonderful is going to come out of this. 2 months later, I went down to the nearest senior center. And I said, you know what? I've been teaching in colleges for years and years. I have a class which helps people think differently. Could I teach it here? And they said, we don't pay anything. And I said, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because this message is so very wonderful. So they said, sure. When I was finished, all the other senior centers, there's about 7 of them in Sonoma County, called and they said, can you teach it here? And I said, absolutely. And so I did, all free of charge. And then there's this place up in the hills of Santa Rosa called the Verena. It is a place where billionaires retire. They have their own lake, their own golf course, their own tennis courts, their own everything. And they said, would you like to see our facility? I had never heard of them before. And I said, sir. I drove up there. I was blown away, sat down with the wellness director, and she said, we'd like for you to speak here. And I said, wonderful. And then she said, what's your fee? My fee? Yes. What do you charge? I've never charged before. Well, shouldn't you have a fee? Okay. And so I gave her a fee and she said, sure, we'll pay that. I went home. I told Mary. And then an organization called TOPS called me and they said, we'd like for you to speak at our convention. Really? Absolutely. At that time, people had been saying, where's your book? Where's your book? Where's your book? What book? Don't you have a book? Well, yes, I've written a book. No. You have to write a book. You have to write a book about this because this stuff is so wonderful. So I wrote Making Your Mind Magnificent. Took a second on our house because this is way before computerized publishing. And the book came on the week of this convention. So Mary and I piled these books into our car, drove to San Ramon. I walked in. Where do you want me to set up for the breakout session? And they said, we looked at your website. We want you to be the keynote speaker. We want you to speak in front of 600 people. I said, oh, good. That would be fun. So Mary and I piled some books on this table, and I walked in the ballroom and began speaking. And Mary said, as soon as I began speaking, people began leaving the room in droves to get out, which she thought was really weird until she realized they were running to the table to buy a book because they were saying, when he's done, we're going to be out of books. So while I was in there speaking, she was selling hundreds of dollars of books. And when I was done, we sold thousands. And as Mary and I drove to the cheese factory in San Ramon, trying to put away $2,000 in $20 bills, she looked at me and she said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to retire, look pretty, and sell books. And that's what she's been doing for 10 years now. I never asked for this. I never had a business plan. It just happened in such a wonderful way. And then 10 years ago, part of this was I met a gal named Anastasia Suster. And we sat down at the Henny Penny's restaurant in Petaluma. And we had this vision. And she's still my agent. And I love her so very much. So how can I summarize this in one sentence? Remember this, dear friends. Your brain's believing just what you tell you. When you say this is wonderful, this is exciting, this is going to be amazing, your brain's going to say absolutely, and then looks for ways to make it exciting. Nothing in life is wasted unless you say it is. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Let's give Stephen a big hand. And if you want to unmute yourself, we have a few minutes for questions and answers, and then we're going to turn it back over to Craig and Antonio White, who will give us a demo of the new GGBC website. Any questions for Susan or Stephen?
Everyone's muted.
Yeah, go ahead and unmute you. I'll ask the first question to Susan. Susan,
Yes.
You mentioned something about being from Chicago, and I understand back in the 60s there was a big event going on there towards the end of the 60s, and you've shown up in a couple of, not police lineups, I shouldn't say, but in a couple of events there or locations. Can you tell us a little bit about your time during that period?
Well, I was a split history English major at Illinois. And when there was going to be a Democratic convention with problems in Chicago, even though I was already teaching in the bad old days in a bad neighborhood, I thought, I need to be here. So yes, I was in Lincoln Park, and I was also in Grant Park. I was there to see 60 buses empty of riot-geared policemen. And as I drove back to where I lived, my eyes started to burn when I got past Lincoln Park. It was tear gassed. So I have many memories. I have memories of seeing Abby Hoffman and Rennie Davis in Lincoln Park. What I did is I stopped people as they were running towards Old Town, and I asked them, where are you going? And this is what I've learned about crowds. Every single person said, I don't know, I'm just following them. And that's when I learned I don't want to be a follower.
Cool.
Yeah, I did a few things in my day.
Wow.
Any other questions? Anybody? Make sure you unmute yourself before you ask.
Well, I'll throw this out. If anyone's question is about deep dish pizza, my favorite place is Gino's East.
Okay. Is deep dish the good or the bad? Which is better, deep dish or New York?
That you would even ask. I can't believe it. Deep dish.
I've had them both. I love both of
And
them.
so you ask.
Stephen,
Yeah.
quick question. What was the name of the high-end retirement community up in Marin?
The Varena.
How do you-
Sorry, Varenna.
Z?
V is in Victor, Arenna. It's called, I think Oakmont took it over with the fires, so I think it's called the Oakmont Varena. If you want to email me, I'll let you know for more information.
Okay,
Why
thank
don't
you.
you text me, chat, give me your email in your chat, and I'll send it to you, all the information.
Okay.
Okay.
Stephen, after your first presentation to us years ago, and you introduced us to Making Your Mind Magnificent, I bought a copy for each of my children.
Oh my gosh. I'm just start
And
crying.
now my two grandsons who are entering college, I've given copies to them to read.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that, Reginald. Thank you. That's That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Now, Stephen, I understand you also do a radio show, and on Wednesdays, usually after the Golden Gate Club.
Yep. Right now, I'm not doing it because I'm doing a whole series of presentations for a gentleman who owns 5 different floorings, and the only time I can do it is at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays. But usually after, it'll continue again in the end of March, and it's on KOWS 92.5 from 9 to 11. And I interview people. And I would love to interview you for my radio program. And we do it over the phone, so you don't have to travel anywhere. And then I record it, and then I put it on my website, so you can see all the other people that I've interviewed. So if you're interested in that, send me your name and your email in the chat line, and we can talk. And you set up the questions. You set up the questions, and I ask the questions. So it's one, people love it. People have always said, when can I do it again? So I'd love to do that.
Any other questions? Joel, you keep holding up a book, it looks like.
Well, I just thought you'd like to see the book.
Oh,
Put it in front of you.
I don't know if there we go.
yeah.
There you go. And the tape and the disc. Although I don't know what to do with that one anymore.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, if there are no more questions, last chance, because we're going to turn it over to Antonio and Craig so that they can show us the new GGBC website.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank both of our speakers, and Susan, Stephen. You guys are awesome. You know, really, I learned so many good things. You know, and the whole energy and the way it worked out. And I'm still reflecting on Stephen's closing statement. Nothing in life is wasted unless you say it. So, wow, what a great statement to end your presentation on.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? All right. Well, Tony, would you like to introduce Antonio?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Pitch Freak, Antonio White, past president of the club, as well as our webmaster, and he has put together a phenomenal new website that we will be launching in the very near future. He has some folks doing beta testing at the moment, and he's going to now present that to us. So I'm going to spotlight Antonio so everybody can see what he's doing. Oh my gosh, that's pretty scary there, Antonio.
Hello, everybody. You found the Pitch Freak. First of all, do we get a thumbs up for our speakers here? Just a quick thing. This normal. Okay, fantastic. Very good. All right. So we're gonna share the screen. You're in the Bat Cave here, where I do all the projects here. And so we'll share the screen so you guys can see. And later on, for those of you who are unable to join us on the presentation here, let's see if we can share it like this here. We'll come over here and we'll go to our website. I don't know if you guys can see the screen here. Very good. And we're going to go to our current GGBC website. And as you'll see here on this area here, we have a link that will take you to the new website.
Antonio, hold on a second. The screen's not showing the whole screen there.
It's not showing the whole screen?
Oh,
At least not on mine.
You're not, are you not unable to see the screen?
no.
Hold on.
You can actually look over your shoulder and see your screen that way.
Hold on.
Too,
Let me do it this way. Share screen here. Boom.
Wow.
Well, that's all right. Let's see here. Let's go this way. How's that?
It looks
Oh, that's
Yeah,
good.
that's good.
Okay, good. So this is the new website. And as you can see here, we've made it a lot simpler and easier and cleaner and more elegant. It works on the phone very well. And so because we're doing more COVID related calls that are, what we want to do is make sure that we have a website that kind of keeps up and makes things easier so that we can connect more in more areas on the website. So I want to just give you a very quick tour of the functionality here, and we're adding new functionality as well. So a couple key things are privacy and security, because we want to share more information with each other as far as being able to connect offline as well as during the meetings here. So let me just walk you through the process real quick. So in this website, as you can see here, you have about, which tells you areas about the club here. We'll be adding to this over time. You can get more information about that. Also, you can get information on our events. as well. And so we have our upcoming events here. Oh my gosh, we're having Janice Ledfin coming very soon. That's coming up very soon with Janice here. And so you can click on the information, get more information about the talks here. We'll be adding to these things over time as well. If you want to visit the club when we are live here, you can go to the beautiful Marines Memorial Hotel here. We'll have more information about that as well. And then finally, obviously, you can sign up for a newsletter. We have our privacy and terms of service agreement. Of course, that's very exciting to read. And then ultimately, here's the key thing that's going to be separating the new site from the old site. And that is our ability to have member-specific, member-only access. And so up here in the top right-hand corner, there's a little click that says login. And then from there, you have the new GGBC login area here. And I already logged into the site. And in this site, which is also available on your phone, all you have to do is click this one button right here in the middle. You can see it right here. Zoom meeting access. You just click that button here and it'll take you right into the Zoom meeting each week. So you don't have to go searching for your emails for the link for this week's Zoom meeting access. It's just one button push, which will take you each week to that week's meeting. So they'll make it a little bit easier for you. In addition here, we have some other capabilities. We have our member news, calendar, directory, recordings, a GGBC store that Tony's been advocating for some time. So we're going to have that finally, and a suggestion box and a new member fast application. So I'll show you very, very quickly, and you guys can explore that. If you go to the current ggBCSF.org website, there's a button to click to see the new website. You can just go right to it. So under member news here, and we're just adding this over time, it's going to be in a blog format, and our editor-in-chief, our master with the pen, Pete Ratto here. This is the first blog post for the current website here, talking about John Vine. And also you'll be able to read the post as well. And this format will allow us to have an archive of all the posts moving forward. So it's easier to go back in time and read previous posts in case you missed it, instead of having to go back to your emails and so on. So it'll make it much more convenient for historical purposes to be able to do that. So that's very fun. The way to move around the website here is there's a link at the very top. It says return to member dashboard. All you need to do is click on that, and then you can go back to this area here. In addition here, of course, if you miss a meeting, you can just click on recordings, and Tony has been fantastic in making sure that we have recordings available. And so now you'll be able to see all the previous recordings for the shows, and we're adding more and more recordings as Tony's put them on here. We'll have more of those here. So you can, if you miss a meeting, just go to recordings and you can see the previous meeting there. That'll be available for you too, which is a lot of fun. In addition to that here, you can go to the calendar. And this is a members only calendar. So you actually get to see all of the events that are happening for GGBC, not just our weekly events, but all our special events as well that won't be on the public facing calendar here. So that'll be important, because one of those other areas for that is going to be specialty clubs or we'll call topical clubs inside GGBC for folks who want to talk about wine or real estate or photography or book clubs or movie clubs or so on. We'll go into that in a little bit here as well. Finally, not finally here, but now we also have the directory. The directory is probably some of the most requested aspect for the website for our members. And the reason why it's so difficult here is because we need high levels of security for all of our private information. So we don't want this made available on a public site or a site that seems public but is actually not so secure. So it took a long time to put this together to make it viable and easy, but now we have it. It's terrific. It allows you to see all the members of the club. We'll be adding photographs to this as well, but all you need to do is click on a name in this little search area here in the corner here, and we just type in Craig as far as our wonderful president, and you can see here that his name pops up here in the corner. We can click on that, and obviously you have his information here that's available for accessing that. And so you can clear that, you can get information on all of our membership as well. So I won't do it since this is being recorded. I won't go into detail on that, but lots of detail for all of our members here. It also allows you the opportunity here to be able to, I'll just put mine in here. It also allows you the opportunity to be able to send a message directly from this area here. So you can just click message, send your fellow member a message directly through that system here. And we tested out with our Bill Buchanan, and that worked out terrifically. So thank you, Bill, for helping out with testing. Thank you, Betty, as well. And we'll go back to our member dashboard. There are also some other options here as well, such as a suggestion box. In the suggestion box here, we haven't had a suggestion box before. Now we have a suggestion box. So you just click on the suggestion box here, put in your name, and add your comment or your idea here, and it will go right to us. And then those suggestions will get presented to the board each month for review and consideration. And then you just hit the submit button. And then we'll go back to our member dashboard. And we also have our our new member fast application. Just click on that button. Now here's the deal. Normally we sponsor members to join the club. Well, it's been difficult here for people to get fast access here, and sometimes things get missing through the cracks. So we figure out a way to get rid of that. Nobody's going to fall through the cracks anymore. If you are a member of the club and you want somebody to join us as a group, all you need to do is you go to the member application here, and it's a very quick application. You just put your name as a sponsor, first and last. You put the applicant's first and last name. You include their email, their phone number, and we have a 3 checkbox area that you've notified the applicant that there's 3 meetings required in order to be a member. Then you also make a notation here, a checkbox that you believe the applicant would be a great addition to the group. And then finally, you agree to be the sponsor for that applicant. Once you submit that here, it goes right to Tony and Craig and myself here, and that gets fast tracked to our board of directors. So for voting here, so it makes it much, much faster and easier. So if you have somebody who would like to be a member, all you need to do as a member is fill out the fast track application for doing that. And we go back to our membership here. And then finally here, if we got this, is this correct here? All right, and then I'll have to move this over here. All right, there's a box here to join the community. We have not connected this yet to our pay gate. And so I'll be working with Ray over the next week here to tie this into our Stripe account so that you can actually pay for events and you can pay for membership on a renewal basis here right through the app as well. So that'll be something that will be fun. That'll allow us some fun with that. So the other thing here is a little bit of information about the club. And so we have a forward-facing website, plus we have the internal club website. So that makes it a lot of fun. And so that's it. And then the way here, the last thing is if you get lost, you can just click on the logo, it'll take you back to the homepage. And I think we've got everything covered in that. And then just simply log out and you're done. So I don't know if you have any questions, but you're welcome to view the website here. All you need to do is go to the current website and click the link. Everybody who is a member can now, if you log in here, everybody who is a member, as you can see here, all you have to do is when you go to login, you're going to see this little sign-in area here on the far left here. I don't know if you can see that. And then you're just going to type in your email. And for those of you who don't have passwords yet, and none of you have passwords yet, all you have to do is this. Go to request password at the bottom of the screen. Your email is already in our system. So if you request a new password, one will be sent to your email. So if you are already a member of the club, request a password just by clicking that button, type in your email. That email needs to match our system. It will send you a password, and then you'll have access to all this information. So we'll be rolling this out over the next week here, but it's live now, and you guys can check it out. And we'll have lots more capabilities with the website over the next many months here to make it even more fun place for all of our members to enjoy the experience of being a Breakfast Clubbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio. Appreciate that. That's looking really great today, and I appreciate you sharing that with us.
A lot of work. Good job.
That's amazing.
Good job, Antonio.
Thank you, Reg. One other thing too is that because of the way that we've set up the website here, now we can have additional administrators to the website for special areas. And so one of the things that we were concerned about is that what if something happens to me? So what's going to happen is we have access. Reg will have access as our technical head, and the president will have access, and Tony will have access, and Ray will have access. So we have redundancy here. All these folks have full access to the website for anything that needs to be done here. So we have a lot of redundancy built in here and safety for all of us, so that we have the ability of longevity and lots of people having the ability to do what's needed in case somebody's out on vacation or what have you. Folks can jump in. So we've got a lot of safety and precautions built into the website here, and hopefully we're gonna have a lot of fun as well.
Excellent.
Nice job.
Amazing.
Amazing. Good. Great.
Yeah, that's amazing. How do you have time for that? I mean, you're a busy guy to begin with.
It was super fun, and I just love this view. I love this view. It's like the Batcave, right? So we got the. So hey, I see Randall Reeder. Look, it's Randall Reeder. Hello, Randall Reeder. So if you guys have any questions about what we're doing here, that's fine. But also use the suggestion box here. That's the other reason for that. So if you have, we'll also have forums and surveys that we'll be doing for folks to make things fun. But please feel free to use what we're doing here to increase the enjoyment for the club. And if you have any questions,
Antonio, I have a question.
yes, sir.
How many hours of the day or night do you spend in the bat cave out of 24 hours?
That's why I built a bat cave, because I spent a lot of time in here.
I think Joel's got his hand up.
Yes, Joel.
I got a question. When you brought up Craig's name, you also brought up Josie.
Ah, that's a very good. Thank you for mentioning that, Pappy. So one of the things that we have here is every time all of the sponsors are connected to all of the members. So Craig actually was Josie's sponsor. And so if you type in Craig, you'll find out Craig's information, but you'll also find out who Craig sponsored. So for instance, if I type in your name, Joel, I'll find your name, but all the people that you sponsored as well. So there's always a connection between the sponsor and the members here, just for the sake of history. Because sometimes what happens is over time, we figure out who sponsored this person for historical reference, right? And sometimes we don't know, we forget who that is. So now we know who sponsored who's, because it's a nice way to track the lineage of the club.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Brilliant.
Good. And Janice has a question. You're muted, Janice. And then Patricia.
One thing I notice when I go to different groups' websites is I see who the board members are. I don't know if you've thought about putting in a quick thing, so people might want to know who's the president, who's the membership chair, etc.
Yes, and we have some advanced features for doing that, and we'll be adding that over time. But
Also,
that's a great insight, and we'll be doing that. Yes.
Thank you. Also, the title of my book is Banish Burnout Toolkit, not How to Banish Burnout.
Very good. We'll make that update. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you for your hard work. I know how much work this is.
My pleasure. And then Patricia has a question.
Yes, if we want to recommend a speaker, would we put it in the comment box rather than what I do now is email everybody that needs to know?
That's right. So we got one area here now, and so that we have one simple way to add either speaker, basically anything that you'd like to include in the club to increase the enjoyment. So it could be a new speaker, it could be a new idea for the website, it could be an event, it could be something that's not working out well for you. Anything that we can do to improve the enjoyment of the club goes right into that suggestion box. And then Anastasia has a question, and then Joel.
Yeah.
So I noticed the one of the check boxes for sponsoring is that I agree to being a sponsor, and as a new member, I don't know what that entails. So maybe you would have that in like little side notes that you can read, but for now, I'd love to know what that means.
That means that you're simply, what we have is basically you sponsor somebody here, and that your job as a sponsor is to introduce them to the club and to make them feel comfortable. There's basically that's the extent.
So, I mean, sometimes when you're a sponsor, that's like a lifelong commitment to something. So I just want to get a little clarity on that. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, a lifelong commitment to bring them here, but I didn't know if there were specific protocols, things that we had to do. So that's common sense. Thank you.
That's right. Very good. Thank you for the question. And then Joel, you had a question?
This may be better for the board, but I just thought I'd ask, is there any room for recognizing our advertisers?
Yes, we'll be adding robust capabilities onto the website for our advertisers, including special pages for our advertisers, special deal pages for our advertisers, and ways to connect with the members as well. And so we want to make lots of rewards available for folks who sponsor it. So it will be a way better experience now for both sponsors and for our members to interact with those sponsors as well. So we'll be rolling that out too within the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. That's a great job. Thank you. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, guys. Very good. All right. If there are no other questions here, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Antonio. That was fantastic. I'm just amazed that you were able to put that together. And can you do my personal website too?
No.
Oh. You sure you don't want to rethink that?
Yes. No. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we'll keep the room open for a few more minutes, but I'd like to just thank everyone for attending the Breakfast Club this morning. And we'll go ahead and end things right now, but thank you for joining us. I'm Craig Stradadams, your president for 2021. and we're looking forward to next week. Tony, who do we have coming up for the presentation next week?
Let's see. Hold on a second. Let me get where I can get my screen up here. Next week, we have Julie Anderson, who will be speaking with us about engage your brain to deal with difficult people and create dynamic relationships. Followed on the 24th by Janice Litvin, who will be interviewed by Antonio White, talking about her Banish Burnout Toolkit. And then the week after that, March the 3rd, we have Ray Engen joining us. He's a comedian, stand-up, does great work, talks about, including today or that day, he's going to be speaking about creating more fun out of your virtual meeting. So we've got a great lineup coming up in March that we'll talk about next week.
Well, thank you, Tony. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us today.